All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and the schedule is packed, but luckily packed with quality. Now it's time for one of the most popular tracks that now has become a tradition of Latitude59. The person who will be taking the stage now and taking over time for this track, as much as I can remember, he's been also delivering this track, hosting this track, and sharing insightful conversations with the founders who will be coming on this stage. I'm talking about Best of Baltics, and of course, Margus Uudam, who is the founding partner of Karma Ventures. Please welcome on the stage.
Hi, great to see you again. I think it's the session of 7th or 8th or 10th of Best of Baltics, and it goes very much in the same format. Initially, we'll have a quick snapshot how Baltics look like, and then we have 6 presentations, stories of founders. It is not pitching, it is not exactly founder stories, it is getting a flavor what happens in Baltics and how founders think about their successes and sometimes from lessons learned. But a quick overview where we stand in the Baltics. So we have followed Crunchbase data, which is very optimistic, I must say. It says Baltic countries have 6,600 startups, and Estonia 3,000, Latvia 1,200, Lithuania 2,200. However, if we calibrate it a bit with other data, Dealroom says 1,500, 600, and 1,000. The reference might be that Crunchbase also counts in Deadpool, and Dealroom might have everybody still in operations. Over the last 13 months, Crunchbase added 1,700 startups. Again, I think there is some calibration room into it, but still the scene looks really active. We are getting to a milestone of 6 billion. 6 billion raised by Baltic startups since 2010, which was pretty much the very early stage when when Baltic ecosystem started to develop. And over the last 12 months, roughly 13.5% was added to it. We have special ask to everybody who is from Latvia. We rely on crowdsourced data, which is the absolute best data source. Estonia and Lithuania are filling in data, and Latvians did for a few years as well. Please keep doing it. Out of this almost 6 billion, as you can imagine, most of it, as the ecosystem matures, has been raised over the last 4 years, 86% of it, later stage rounds. And number of companies, we set 2 million mark, who has raised more than 2 million is about 132. Again, increase 15% over 12 months. Taking into account that the last 6 months of last 12 months has been really challenging for many. I think everybody in the ecosystem has used to report of records, levels of fundraising, and we might become to a new era where new numbers are not necessarily always the records, and we need to start looking maybe more into quality than quantity. First half of this year, it's not of course over, but it has been fairly quiet. First quarter, for example, has been roughly 50 to 60 million deals versus first year when it was almost 700. But there is a healthy balance between Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, while formerly it has been very much Estonia-dominated statistics. We have always had a list, the most money raised companies, and you see it in a row. There are 2 newcomers, absolutely good news, Ready Player Me and Irones. And this is also an interesting small trend that has started to happen. Hardware starts to step into the top 20. Starship and Skeleton have been here for a while. Ironis as well, hardware startup stepping in. And I think they will take healthy 30 to 40% in years to come. There is a lot of hardware-related startups lately, and there is a lot of pressure also to invest in them. 5 companies have raised more money in this top versus last year. How does the ecosystem look like? Obviously, you know, there is healthy amount of local funds in Baltics, early venture. We have late venture covered, mezzanine, growth, buyout. The total ecosystem, which includes private equity as well, has roughly 2.4 billion assets under management for a relatively small region. And the total dry powder for Baltics across asset classes is 1 billion at the moment, out of which venture is 400 million. There is 400 million dry powder in the Baltics only, not to talk about investors from outside of Baltics. At the same time, over last year, who have invested most in Baltic startups? And you can obviously see a good number of known VCs, Northzone, Andreessen Horowitz, Atomico, Axel, Python, and so on. Now, if we look quarterly development in terms of deal count and deal size, then there is a trend line. And in total deal value, we see 2020 first quarter was still great, I think record high. Since then, we have been dropping to lower levels where Q1 has been very conservative. But it's back to, if you look at 2018, 19, maybe 20th level. At the same time, deal count has not dropped as much, which indicates a bit more smaller deals in average. There has been also number of exits. 16 exits, trade sales have happened in 22. There is a snapshot what has happened since 2017. Based on current experience, it is interesting that exit market seems to be very active. There is a lot of corporate interest to take a look at good technologies. And it's also based on our experience. However, when it comes to a final decision, quite often the corporate response is, we just made a layoff, we cannot add more people, can we wait a bit, and so on. It has been very active, very positive. Corporates are looking to build more competitive advantage, but they are on hold. When we launched Karma, 2016, since then we have reviewed 1,114 Baltic startups. They have been about 15% of our deal flow. And again, Estonia dominating in the same proportion as the total number of startups in Baltics. Out of this, we have invested roughly in 10 deals in Baltics, 20 overall. The total deal flow has been 7,000 companies from Europe. Now, it is data about our deal flow, and so take it as such. But what we see, what is usually asked while fundraising in different phases over across different countries, you see a bit of trend line. And the seed seems to be pre-seed, seems to be only going up, maybe some correction here. Seed is going only up as an ask, even in difficult times. We have significant fluctuation here in A rounds in Estonia, but I think if we combine more data in, it is not as dramatic. However, over last quarters, the ask for A rounds in Latvia, Lithuania, and they are starting to decline. Initially, the ask is quite big. There is calibration to market situation, and usually the ask will be a bit more conservative. Just just maybe two more items. The Baltic is not alone in it. And we have here specifically deep tech fundraising in Europe, which has dropped significantly as well. One could think deep tech is maybe something which is behaving relatively well because there is, green, everything green related, cybersecurity related, that gets a lot of attention. But however, the market is still fairly quiet in Q1, and it feels it starts to pick up in Q2, Q3 quite well. There is a fundamental belief among founders and some investors that raise later this year or raise early next year, the market will be better. If everybody follows it, the market will be super overcrowded by founders fundraising. And you can imagine with whom you compete at the time. The other question you could think of is, what is the good market? And it is not 2022, 2021 valuations. Market was out of balance already by that time. And it takes a bit of effort to understand what is the fair market, where it should land. But expectations on 2021 would be pretty optimistic. However, the good example what can be done in these times, here are a few recessions, .com fallout, Facebook, Atlassian was started, 2008 crisis, Lehman Brothers, Airbnb, Uber, WhatsApp, Instagram, Stripe, and so on. During these times, revolutionary technologies and solutions are sometimes built. In Karma, we categorize technologies in three buckets. One is visionary technology, the other one is pioneering and commodity. Visionary, we might have different views, but we consider still quantum and brain-computer interfaces in that category. Generative AI has always been there as well. It is moving. And in quite many cases, it is already pioneering tech, which means it's commercial. And in many areas, it is still a visionary tech. And we obviously know what the impact could be. However, maybe to keep something in mind, it is an estimation how many jobs can be automated in which verticals. Based on our experience, we have seen startups in our portfolio who find ways to deploy OpenAI in a way that processes which have taken 6 hours before come down to 3 minutes. The question to ask, is it possible in your vertical? Do your competition implement it? And then the question is, if you use somebody else's technology, are you commodity very soon because everybody else will deploy it because it's available to everyone? Or you are the developer of it and you have unique aspect and capability in it? This is a landscape, and it still, I think, takes a lot of time really to fine tune it. My email client just got OpenAI capability, which tries to reply to emails instead of me. The answers look really awkward. You don't recognize me. You would imagine it's a spam. It is too polite. It is too long and nicely said. I wonder when it becomes me in my responses. Good. Thank you a lot. We go to startups. This is our team, always passionate about deep tech investments in seed and A rounds in Europe. And now we head to the Best of Baltic series. The first one on the stage will be Grünfin and Triin. Please.
Can I get a clicker? No? Hello, everybody. Lovely startuppers, investors, all the other awesome people. I'm Triin Hertman, and I'm representing company Grünfin. And what we want to do is actually grow your wealth guilt-free. So this is what we really want to do, drive more capital towards impact. How we started and why? Me and my co-founder Karin, we're both quite old already when we started startup. So we had our fair share of experience. And we were in our lives in a position where we could do basically anything. And then we started talking, and we talked about, okay, we are doing great for our family, our friends, our loved ones, but what can we do for the whole world or for the wider audience? And we knew that our specialty is investing, and Karin brought in another dimension, which is impact, which really resonated with me because I'm a mother, I'm an investor, I want my money to go to the right place. Investing. Do you all invest? You should. It's very easy. But people think very often that I don't have time, I need to read several books, I need to listen to all these podcasts, go to these trainings, I don't have time, I need to know all about the asset classes, and I don't have the money, I'm just like, I live from payday to payday. But it doesn't really matter, you just need to find a place that just does it for you. And if you want to put sustainability or impact into your mindset, this is your lifestyle choice. You want to also make your money to go to the right place. So we built a product that we basically took the best investment strategy of the 100 years history of investing. We want to provide long-term, regular payments, low cost, low risk, diversified portfolio that follows the sustainability trends. Because when you follow the trends, you really can't lose. Okay, we started investing company. To found it, it's really hard. So we went on a journey to get a license. And you know when you go on a hike, but you don't really know what's behind the next corner, but you can also drop into a swamp or you can get hit by a rock or something all the time. And you don't know what's behind the next corner. So I wear this shirt that I replaced the word happiness with the word license. And I never knew where it is going to be and when it's going to arrive, but we did it. But the tricky thing is that the license doesn't bring you customers. So after the first cheer and high fives and happy tears, we really had to go and find them as well. And then you start seeing these memes in your Instagram, in your Twitter, and you just feel like, okay, that's me. And even though we've been building companies before, but we never were founders, so I really fast understood that I had been on this lower roller coaster, not on the higher one. But that's the learning. We're pretty young still. We are just launched 1.5 years ago, so we're babies in terms of startups. So I think this is something that should be printed out in every startup kitchen. And you really think that great product makes the customers come. But what you're actually selling is the better version of your customer. Somebody who can do something that he wasn't able to do without your product. So we found our customers. And it really, really made sense to start with ourselves and our children. Because long-term investing for a child, which also makes the planet a better place, it just makes so much sense. And then also employers came to us and said, I want to offer this to our employees. I want them to be smarter with their money. I want to help them save. I want to help them grow their wealth. But at the same time, I would also like to decrease my employee turnover. So it was a perfect solution for them as well. And just recently, we also opened our product for small businesses or freelancers. And basically, these three all these three types of customers, they can come and grow their wealth without bad conscience. So we are on a journey, but please remember that where you put your money should make our lives better some ways. So it goes with everyone. It goes with personal individuals. It goes with companies. It goes with investors. So whatever I do with my money, does it make the life better for anybody? Or it just is for my own well-being and nobody else's? So thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Triin, you are everything one human being in our ecosystem wants to be. You are employee of early startup that made massive success. You are investor in startups, in funds, you are founder. But give us still a sneak peek. I think you find yourself still, and this is actually a question from one of your co-founders.
Okay.
You still might feel like, oh, that was a silly mistake. How could I make it still? What are the things you still discover as expectations versus reality?
I think, however good you think you know what the startup or life will be, it's just 10% of what's actually going to happen with you. So it's really the big roller coaster that's there. And of course, I think the main thing is to iterate and go forward and like try new things when stuff doesn't really go your way, and just keep going and keep your customers happy.
On the customers, and you mentioned something that customers might be guilt-free. There is a philosophical question that destroying the planet has been, unfortunately, awesome business. Should saving or good saving of it be business too? How you think about it?
Well, in general, I think everyone, 99% of people, are lazy, greedy, and they want stuff to happen like a really like no-brainer or simple way. So to create products that are sustainable and green, you also have to build a great product as is. So you have to make it cheaper, you have to make it more convenient, and then everybody will use it, and it will be a no-brainer for them. And I truly think that as the green is the color of the money, it will have a new meaning in the future.
Great. Thank you, Triin.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And next, we have Atrandi Biosciences and Juozas coming to the stage.
Let's see. Where's the screen? There's the screen. OK. Yeah, hello, everyone. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me on this showcase. And what I want to do today is use the next kind of 6-7 minutes to try to explain what we do at Atrandi Biosciences. And it's probably a bit different than what most people in the audience do. It's kind of captured in the statement there. So what we do is we deliver state-of-the-art technologies that will unlock the full potential of cellular genomics. And I can appreciate that it's not really clear what we do. So let's kind of go through a few slides and try to make that more understandable. So I want to start by reminding about the human sequencing, and in particular about the first human genome that was sequenced roughly 23 years ago. So back in 2000s, the sequence of the first human was published, and that project took 10 years. It cost well over $1 billion. And it's not just one scientist doing it in the lab. It was really a global effort of hundreds and thousands of people working towards this really important discovery. Now, what this did is this put us on a trajectory towards personalized medicine. We're not there yet, but we're actually not that far off, as I'll show you. And what we really understood having sequenced that human genome is kind of like the physics, the moment the physics experience early in the 20th century. We just learned how much we actually don't know yet about biology, and in particular about human biology. And so I want to make a case that the kind of a basis of progress in science and life sciences and healthcare is really the evolution of liquid handling technologies. And liquid handling technologies, that's a fancy name for saying how do you pipette stuff in a lab, how do you perform molecular biology reactions, how do you perform your experiments. And most of you will be familiar with beakers, something you've probably seen even in your school. And much like electronics did in the 20th century, liquid handling technologies experienced a pretty drastic evolution that followed the trend of miniaturization and parallelization. And today, the pinnacle of liquid handling is droplet microfluidics. So this is probably a technology you're not familiar with. In a nutshell, what it does is it compartmentalizes a sample into tiny droplets, and then each droplet is kind of like a reaction vessel. And really, over the last decade, microfluidics has been the driver of most important discoveries in therapeutics, diagnostics, and just fundamental understanding of biology. And this is where our company was formed. So we founded the company 7 years ago. Back then, it was named Droplet Genomics, so something has actually changed. And you'll see in the next slide why we changed the name of a company. But we founded the company with a mission to make droplet microfluidics more accessible to people. We have done that quite successfully by launching 2 hardware platforms that are supported by reagents. It forms a full product portfolio. It's actually quite a successful product portfolio. It's been on the market for roughly 3 years. We've seen revenues grow pretty fast. It's a great business, great margins. But actually what we learned in the process is that selling complex value proposition is really hard to scale. And this is an obvious lesson, but as a founders and people coming from science, we actually had to learn it ourselves. Now, like most people in the audience, what we want to do is we want to build a scalable business, in effect becoming a unicorn. And one way to achieve scalability in life sciences, and really in any business, is to develop a killer application. Now, in our case, that poses a problem, because droplet microfluidics is a somewhat established technology, and so most of the low-hanging fruit had been picked off, right? In other words, most of the killer applications that can be enabled by droplets have been commercialized already. So we went back to the drawing board, and we took a very deep look at the technology itself, and like any technology, droplets are not perfect. They have certain limitations, and those limitations prevent droplets from being utilized for certain killer applications, right? And so we looked at the technology, and we did something that looks very simple on a slide, but it's not that simple in practice. It took us like 4 years. We developed semi-permeable capsule technology, which really solves the challenges of droplets, solves the limitations of droplets technology, and is a fundamental innovation, meaning that it's a next step in liquid handling evolution. So now in our hands, we have a technology which can enable us to develop these killer applications for life sciences. And here I want to return back to sequencing, because we as a company, and really any company, we don't exist in a technological vacuum. There are things happening around us, and something very important has happened last year. So sequencing has been on a path of tremendous innovation. Like the past 20 years, it's hard to oversell how much things have gotten better in sequencing. And if we put it in numbers, so the first human genome cost $1 billion, and it took 10 years to achieve that. As of last year, we can do it for $100, and we can do it in a day, and it's all robotic. And these are the magic numbers. This is what will bring personalized medicine into reality. And this is, like, for a scientist, this is super exciting. And actually, as a founder, this is also super exciting. Because if we look at the value chain in genomics, an ideal value chain, a simplified value chain, would look something like this. There's a biological sample. So let's say a tumor from a patient in a hospital. And what you want to do is you want to get a sequencing readout. So you want to, well, learn the human genetic code. And there's a bunch of companies offering that capability. Now, in an ideal world, you would be able to take a biopsy and put it on a sequencer. That's unfortunately, or fortunately for us as a company, that's not the way it happens. In reality, there is an intermediate step, which is called sample preparation. And this step is basically molecular biology reactions, which help to prepare biological sample into a sequencing-ready library. And this is where our opportunity as a company lies, and this is where we are working. So our technology enables new types of sample preparation, and the business model is a true and tried razor and blade business model. There's a device which allows you to process your sample, and then there are the blades, the application kits, these killer application kits, which will enable you to prepare different sequencing libraries. And so, without going into very deep specifics, because sequencing technology is just a kind of broad name, there's a lot of nuances. All of these different companies are providing different capabilities and have different use cases, but we put ourselves on a trajectory of growth with these companies. And I think what I showed you in a few previous slides, the price of sequencing has reduced dramatically, so dramatically that it will inevitably grow, and with the growth of sequencing, our technology will become irreplaceable. At least that's what we want to achieve. And so if I was to rephrase the first slide of the goal of our company, so what we aim to do is we want to become this leading sample prep technology for the next wave of genomic applications, which will doubtless be fueled by this drastic reduction in sequencing costs. So I know this was quite complex, but that's all the time that I had, and I'll take probably 1 or 2 questions to make things more clear.
Thank you. Really good to see real deep tech in Baltics.
It's really deep, yeah.
But by the way, how often do you feel like you talk to investors and you see like another one who really don't understand what I do?
Quite often.
Quite often.
At least
and
in the Baltics.
What do you do about it?
Yeah, at least in the Baltics. If you go to specialized investors, the conversation is radically different. Like you dive deep into the technology, and yeah. So it's interesting kind of how different the investors are.
Yeah. So it's a bit of special challenge for you to be in the Baltics while being maybe close to investors who invest a lot in life science, US maybe, a little bit in UK.
Yeah, I think Lithuania in particular has very deep traditions in biotech, and there's a massive talent pool and really good economics, well, cost of work, basically. And so Lithuania is a perfect place to start a biotech business, I think. We have, as an industry, very close connections to the US market. We have a few big companies operating, and so we have that close link. So basically, we can do the same thing as in US, but like 5 times cheaper. So that's kind of a bit of a case for why we do things in Lithuania, because otherwise everything would just need 5 times more money.
On one of the slides, you said you would like to become a unicorn.
Yep.
It's a unreasonable religion of the tech world, and if you think too much about it, you might become only a unicorn. So why do you want to become a unicorn?
I think for me, it's a personal reason to show that in the Baltics we can develop these massive companies and valuable companies, not only in like software, but also in hardware and deep tech. So that's really why achieving this unicorn status matters to me.
True mission in your heart from Baltics.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. That's a good answer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And next, we have on the stage Alpha 3D, Shahab. Please.
Good afternoon, friends and my future friends. It was a nice photo of me before I gained too much weight. So what I want to talk about the story of the first generative AI company of Estonia, Alpha 3D. And the story actually gets back a little bit towards 2016, 2017, which my other 2 co-founders, Matiss and Triin, has decided that augmented reality is a super cool thing. Everybody is playing game, so let's start to do a business around that. And they started to create a very simple app which enables you to put the stuff at the corner of your room so you could buy the item before actually going to the shop, so you could see how it would fit. And then they find out that they have some difficulty. In parallel, I was in the university and I was working with Rakuten, as you may know, and I was leading the 3D content generation for them. So they financed this big lab, and then we had all these photogrammetry devices, and we were creating all the clothes. It has a big issue, and the issue was that not scalable and very difficult to maintain very good quality. And I remember when I turned 37 on 6th of December 2017, attention all you need was being announced by Google. And I find out that, okay, there is something super cool can come out of it, like many other scientists. And then in early 2018, I met Matiss and Triin, and we had a little bit of discussion. They said that they have a difficulty of finding a 3D models. And then I told them that, well, I think that we have some very cool solution, and this is how we decided to focus on AI in order to generate 3D models using these transformer and attention mechanisms. We started to build lots of things. The results as a scientist were very cool, but it was not yet very nice when we were showing it to the people to pay. That's why that we decided to create a hybrid model. The hybrid model was in this form that the AI was generating something a little bit loosey, and then we were giving it to 3D artists, and they started to add extra layers and make the things much, much better. We were talking with lots of investors. They said, it's nice, but And then we were a bit disappointed. And then we were disappointed until Mark Zuckerberg in 2021 announced the metaverse and said that we are going to the virtual world. And it was the boom that suddenly lots of attention comes to 3D content generation. And this was the place that we started to do our seed run. And then we start to grow and start to make super cool items such as these shoes. We started to train more model, collect more data, start to create multi-layers and multi-stages of deep neural network to take a 2D image and create a 3D model. Then we start to focus a lot on the customers. We said that let's make it grandma friendly, in a sense that my grandmother would be able to create a 3D model of the items that they want. She's dead, so she cannot be able to do it. But my niece lives in Australia, my mom lives in another country, and when they are communicating, they would like to actually see 3D model of the items. So we started to look into how we can enable this model to become much better and better. So we find out we have to do multiple things. First, we have to divide the problem into lots of sub-problems, a smaller problems that everybody will understand it. The first problem that we have to sort out was that if I'm giving you a 2D image, you have to be able to understand the depths inside this image. Like what part of the image is closer to you, what part of it is further from you. We did that, it was very nice, it's still not 3D. Then we said that we have to use this one and start to create and estimate how it would look like from other angle of views. And we created something which is called point cloud. Point cloud is lots of dots, which if you go out and look at it, it seems like a very nice 3D model, but when you go closer to it, it's all disconnected dots. Then we had this point cloud being generated by AI, nice but very noisy. Then we developed another model which started to remove the noises. Everything looked pretty nice, but still nobody could use it because they were only dots. So we generated another model which was taking these dots and fit the meshes, and we start to have a very nice mesh. Mesh was very good. Again, as a scientist, I loved it. But the people who were supposed to pay us, they didn't like it because it didn't have any texture. So we started to develop an algorithm which is texturing all these models, and we started to have the texture model out, which people, especially the ones who are in the gaming, start to like it. It has started to become more and more popular, especially when we are seeing the Roblox and those type of things started to become more usable by the younger generations. They are paying lots of money in order to buy the items, and now they can have this glass by taking a photo of it in their Roblox, into their games, and so on and so forth. Now, this being said, we have been working quite a lot with lots of vendors globally. We are partnering with the big venues such as Eco3D, 3Dium. These are the platforms which are selling lots of 3D models for a high-end luxury brands, for the game industries. We are working directly with brands. We are working with the direct luxury ones such as Farfetch. We are working with metaverse-related environments such as Sandbox. We are partnering with NVDA. We are helping them to create this metaverse version of NVDA, which is called Omniverse. That being said, I am coming towards the end of my presentation, and I would like to end it by telling you a joke that ChatGPT told me to tell you. And it said that, a knock-knock joke. Knock, knock, knock. Who is there? Alpha 3D. Alpha 3D who? Alpha 3D who turns pixel into profit. Stay happy, stay generative. Thank you.
Thank you. You are the first generative AI company in Estonia.
Probably.
First and the only one, or you have some more?
Well, you know that it's a boom now. Everybody is generative AI. You're welcome.
So there is massive race in your field. Super competitive situation. How do you keep yourself updated? What Adobe is actually doing at the moment? What's happening in the labs in China or US? How often do you feel like maybe my technology will be outdated in next 3 months?
Scared? Not really. So I told you the story that we have this point cloud, then we do the meshing, then we do the texturing, and there was actually a story behind it. We find out in order not to be scared of other companies creating something else, like OpenAI introduced Shape, which is creating a mesh. We made everything very modular, so if you introduce something new, it's very cool. We can just integrate it into our platform until we develop our own better models, so everything we will be always floating on surfing on top of all of these waves. So that's why that we are very small risk or risk-free from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. So it is area where the talent is like probably most sought for, and you are based in Tartu.
Yes.
And you would imagine all the talent is locked in US at the moment on this topic. So what is the challenge for you to find the talent to stay really competitive?
Very good. All those talents which are in US have immigrated from Estonia to there. So we are taking the talents which have not yet immigrated from Estonia to there.
Yet.
We are finding the talents from Switzerland, from Poland, and other European countries as well.
Yeah. And generative AI is such a buzzword. So how long is the queue of investors behind your door?
It's very good to see that lots of investors are very much interested, and it gives us the ability to be very selective who we want to work and talk with. Because right now it's not, of course, money is very important. I'm coming from a Jewish background, but the fact is that we are looking for VCs who can help us to grow the business bigger and have a better impact into the society that generative AI is a threat.
Great. Thank you. Investors noted it. Which ones are appreciated and needed? Well
Absolutely.
done.
Thank you very much.
So one would think finance should be easy, but next one on the stage is HeavyFinance. Laimonas, please.
No? Oh. Hi everyone, Laimonas here. Super happy to be here on the stage with the smartest and boldest entrepreneurs in the region. And before I start, let me apologize for my voice, which keeps on failing me. It's not COVID, so we are relatively safe. And when I say relatively, I want to address a tiny, small problem, or an elephant in this room, which is called global warming. So, surprise, surprise, global emissions are still on the rise. If we don't do anything, guess what? We are all in a deep shit. So, I really believe that sector by sector, little by little, we can tackle this problem. We, as an organization, as HeavyFinance, we innovate in agricultural industry, which is responsible for 20% of the global emissions. And there is a solution for that called sustainable agriculture. Large farms, 20% of European farms are already farming sustainably. But these guys are large farmers, large corporations, which figured out that sustainable farming not only is beneficial for environment, but as well results in larger profits. Moreover, sustainable agriculture, each year, 1 hectare of land captures around 2 to 3 tons of CO2 and locks it in the soil. So what about other 80% of the farmers? Why they're not doing what's more profitable and more beneficial for environment, right? If we could make them switch to what's called regenerative or sustainable farming, the whole sector, instead of being polluters, would become sequesters of carbon. And here's a problem, lack of capital. It's said to be that around 20 billion of euros are missing in the sector to invest and switch from being a polluter to being a sequester. And this capital is needed for most vulnerable farmers, small and medium ones. So we, as an organization, we innovate, and we created one of the products which we have is what we call green loans, where if the farmer is willing to switch to this regenerative farming, we provide a zero-interest loan so the farmer can buy new equipment and become from the polluter to sequester. The capital is provided through our platform, and instead of getting interest rates, we farm these carbon certificates on this farm and remunerate capital providers, remunerate us, and as well create additional revenue stream for a farmer. So how it works, investors provide the capital to the farmer who is willing to change. Then the farmer adapts the practices such as no-till or strip-till and effectively sequestrate the carbon. Our organization goes to his fields, takes soil sampling, verifies the data, and issues the carbon certificates, which we later on sell on the market price and remunerate as well the investors, ourselves, and the farmer. So just a small use case scenario. The farmer from Poland, a very, very small land, so only 33 hectares of land, requested a small loan of 23,000 euros to switch to regenerative farming. We provided a zero-interest loan, meaning that it was cheap, especially in this market environment. And the investors who provided these loans are expecting around 18% IRR. And this small transaction ended up in sequestering 600 tons of CO2 per 1 year. So that's a major, major impact with a very, very small money, right? So, you know, we are open for business, and we invite organizations to join our journey and make an impact, because very, very small actions can make significant changes. So let's team up, right? 99% of world scientists agree that we are in a planetary crisis, and 99% of people do nothing about it. So don't be 99, be bold. Thank you.
Thanks. I noticed somewhere that you want to remove 1 gigaton of CO2 by 2050. So which idea came first? How to remove 1 gigaton or how to finance agriculture? Which one was first?
No, we first of all are a financial company, and we see this carbon farming as an additional revenue stream, because what we are solving is the problem of lack of financing for small and medium farms.
Give us a bit of context. I will be probably 75 by 2050. How much is 1 gigaton in that context? Like, is it like significant? Is it piece of, what is the impact?
So 1 gigaton is just a small, tiny portion of what we need to do. And as I said, it's not important, you know, that us as an organization solve all the problems, but little by little, entrepreneur by entrepreneur, bold idea by bold idea, we have to team up and figure this out all together. So it's we, as a HeavyFinance, we will not solve it for you. You have to act together.
So I guess you're probably expanding in different markets. How you think about where to expand? Is it more about where the finance can be set up more easily, where you have potentially more customer base, or potentially where you can have somehow remove more emissions? What drives your decisions
exactly
in expansion? We
are following the soil. The soil is an amazing pool of where to hide the carbon. So put it that way that you know, all the fossil fuels which we took out is now making a damage. Now we need to hide the chemical element carbon, C, from chemical element oxygen. So we need to hide carbon somewhere, and soil is one of the best pools to hide the carbon, because the land, you know, it becomes darker. You all know that dark land is somehow very good. Dark means more carbon there, more humus. So when we expand, we expand in the countries which has more potential to sequester carbon. So it's whole CE region and whole north of Europe. So these are the countries with the largest potential to sequester carbon.
And Greenland is? Not going to happen.
And Estonia too, I would say.
Good. So you would have actually markets where your product, in a way, wouldn't work.
True.
Yeah.
No, but I just traveled to Taiwan, and with the Taiwanese people, we as well, thought about how their lands could absorb carbon. So in the rice production as well, you can adopt some practices as well.
Yeah. Well, what is currently the biggest bottleneck for growth and expansion, where the crowd could sing along and potentially grab you later and give you some advice?
That's a message I was willing to send today, right? The roof is on fire, and while we do our small tiny things, I constantly are asked by investors. So what's the IRR? I don't give a shit about IRR, man. If there is a small portion of profit, that's already cool. Right? Because forget about the profits next year and next 10 years. But I can tell you as an entrepreneur to entrepreneur, your next 100x morally and financially is in fighting climate change.
So staying alive is good IRR enough?
True.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next, we talk about robotics, SquadRobotics and Matiss. Please.
Hello everyone, my name is Matiss, I'm the CEO of SquadRobotics. First of all, thanks Margus and Linda for inviting me to present on this stage. It's an honor. And I'll tell you my experience story about building the vision, taking on risks and showing grit and how those are necessary in order to overcome the obstacles as you go along. But before we do that, let me tell you a bit about SquadRobotics and what we do. So we build the autopilot for autonomous mobile robots. Autopilot in itself is a pretty self-explanatory concept. Most of you who flew here, you experienced it firsthand because the autopilot was the one who's actually flying the plane all of the time. So we do the same, but for the autonomous mobile robot sector. We define ourselves as a hardware-enabled software company because all of the cool stuff and cool tech that we build, the cool IP, lies in the software that allows the robot to understand what's around it and to execute its job. And this is an important distinction because we do not build robots. We build the autopilots that runs those robots. And whenever I'm referring to a robot that we have deployed, think of an autopilot-enabled robot. But back in 2017, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We had built this robot and we were trying to sell it to cow farmers who were raising cows for milking. And this is where in those farms in our skin we understood how hard it is to build a hardware product. The second thing that we felt in our skin was the smell of the shit of the cows that were there. The environment was relatively rough, but it allowed us to understand what we do good and where we struggle. And we understood that we build software well, but we struggle with the hardware part. So naturally, we were at the crossroads and we had this question that a lot of startups face. Do we pivot? And after some soul searching, we actually did. It was a hard, tough decision, but we understood that we have made a mistake, and the mistake was that we were just building stuff. We didn't have a vision to what we were building. But the vision was brewing in there. So in 2018, we took a risk and we changed our industry. And we went into the cleaning industry. Maybe it was the shit smell from the cows that made us go in the opposite direction and go into hygiene. But more importantly, we saw that there's a huge opportunity there. There's a lot of manufacturers who have built very good cleaning machines, manually operated, so the hardware part was solved. But the market demanded robots. And the manufacturers were struggling with giving them the software for those. And we booked a stand in the largest cleaning industries expo in Amsterdam, and we took our cow robot there. I took basically every manufacturer that was there by hand to our booth and showed them the demo. The demo was very simple. The robot went back to the one side of the booth and then back. Then we unplugged its brain, plugged in the box, and the robot repeated the same thing. My sales story to the manufacturers was, we will plug this box in your manual machines and they will become autonomous robots. And two pretty big manufacturers bit on this sales story, Stolzenberg and Columbus. And in 2019, we started to work with them to integrate this autopilot into their machines. So on our way back in the van, we were all excited. Let's build, let's do this, let's build the next thing. But we understood that we need a purpose for our company, and that purpose for us was crystal clear at that moment. We will build the operating system, and our autopilot will become the Android for mobile robots. So, with a vision in place, a proof of concept in place, next problem we needed to solve is how to build an MVP that we can generate revenues from. In principle, the MVP question is pretty straightforward. You build an MVP, you give it to customers, they pay you, and then you raise money. But what if the MVP level that is required is actually relatively time-consuming and relatively difficult to achieve? For us, it was very straightforward. We just needed to keep on going, and this is where our grit showed up. We went into many, many environments, and we were solving one problem at a time. It was not easy. We failed several times. For example, once we went to a warehouse where we were supposed to deploy our robot, and in 5 minutes we just put it back in the truck because the localization had failed that day. But all throughout, we were showing progress, step-by-step progress to the manufacturers, and they actually they saw something in there. And then we said, if we can do this with little funding that we have, imagine what we could do with more funding. And manufacturers said yes, and that was our first traction that we got, the new contract with them. On the basis of that, we raised a €1.5 million investment round. And all throughout the period when I started to first talk with investors, it took us 2 years to get to money in the bank account. So all throughout that time, we had only two focuses. Don't die, just scrape in whatever money you can, but just keep going. And secondly, we wanted to build something that's worthwhile. So we stick to our vision. Let's build the Android for the mobile industry. Autonomous robot industry, sorry. So now that the funding was there, we needed to expand on our team. And we faced this third problem that all the startups face, is the access to talent. When we started out the hiring process, we understood with my operations lead, Zana, that it's very important to establish a culture so that the people that we hire are actually people who are interested in the mission and the vision of the company. And that's what we did. And we built this culture. And what I can say is my third learning is creating this culture at this stage cannot be underestimated. It was people who are enthusiastic about their work build better tech. And this has happened for us. And we are now very happily deployed robots in 2 different countries, in Latvia and Germany. We are now earning revenues from those robots on a recurring basis. And most importantly, we have scaled the technology to the level that we can roll out our own robots, and we can integrate the autopilot in our existing manufacturers' machines and also new manufacturers' machines. I hope you enjoyed the story of SquadRobotics. If you're interested in talking about our company, our vision, perhaps our fundraising, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. So why cleaning? Cleaning might be actually an interesting mid-step feeling that robots are a bit of human. I have 2. One is sending me photos of my socks in the dusty corner, saying, are they permanently here, or do you want to move? And overall sends me more pictures than my wife about my kids. The other one is setting up appointment with me, like you have appointment coming up with your vacuum to clean it up. Why exactly cleaning for you?
We were looking at different industries because our logic was that we were struggling with hardware and building the physical machine. And we saw that in this industry, they were trying to experiment with robots. Very early, we had the iRobots, we had the Xiaomis in the households, but in the industrial space, there was really a big gap. There was nothing there. So we saw that there's a lot of manufacturers that we can target, and we looked at this as a market opportunity.
And do you have another category of robots in mind, like what's next
Yeah, so good question. When we're looking at these autonomous mobile robots, we understand that they're going to be all around us. And we are looking that the next verticals that we would be going after we establish ourselves in the cleaning industry is most probably warehouse logistics industry, and forklifts is the big fish, because that's where a lot of money lies. But of course, it's also more complicated and more crowded.
I actually super liked your photo of cows looking at the robot. Sometimes it feels like it's investors looking at generative AI nowadays. So what is your discussion with investors? Like hardware enabled, like you said, like, is it said to be too hard?
Hardware is hard, and we felt it on our skin. But I would say that the discussions, you target the investors that understand what you're doing, and hardware-enabled software is becoming more and more understood by the investors. So you have to pick the people that you approach, and if they understand it, then the success rate is similar to in SaaS startups.
Well, one of the sentences on your kind of recommendations or lessons learned was like, "Don't die," and this is a core competence of Baltic startups. Baltic startups don't die. So, did you have a moment to shut it down as well, or was it always?
We've had moments where there's very little money in the bank account, and I'm sending message on the team chat. I'm sorry, but the salaries are going to be a bit late until I get some loan in place. Those were rough days, but at the end of the day, it's still, you believe in something, and you feel that the team around you believes in, and you just keep going. But yeah, there were empty bank account moments in our life, I can tell you that.
Great, you're alive, and keep rolling. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next one is a living example of not dying. Super example how to pivot if needed. Jobbatical and Karoli.
Hello, Tallinn. How is the feeling? I remember when I started Jobbatical, it was a while ago, Bono said that startups are the new bands, the rock stars, and it certainly feels like that here in Tallinn today. So before we go into looking at where and what Jobbatical is today, I will tell where we are coming from, because it's anything but a linear story. So why I started Jobbatical in the first place was, it started from Silicon Valley, obviously. A lot of things start from Silicon Valley. I was there in a think tank called Singularity University, which was located in NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View. And I'm a runner, and in the mornings I used to run to the seaside, and every time I passed Google. And it's Google, right? So I started to think, why are the Googles of the world here? What's up with this place that industry-changing companies are coming from here? And the answer was really simple, what I learned. The answer was, it's not that people are just born smarter there, it's that smart people are ready to circle the globe to get there. So coming from this tiny country in the corner of the world, I started to ask, what do we need to do that those smart people who are ready to circle the globe would come to Tallinn, to Helsinki, to Stockholm, to Hamburg, to Madrid, and help to build those future Googles from there. So the initial thesis for me was, okay, we have to collect those people and start to introduce them beautiful places where founders are building amazing visions. So we started as a cross-border recruitment platform. And it was amazing. We had people hired from 53 countries to 37 countries. But you know, something funny happened. So all those people were hired, and then our client said, you know, I hired this guy from Australia, but how do I get that person here in my country? We said, okay, we want to help you. So we started to figure out how to help them. What happened was, the more we started to figure out how to make this process, which was hideous, outdated, better, the more they came to us and said, okay, could you help us to move those people from other platforms as well? So suddenly, we learned that the biggest problem of international hiring is not actually finding those people, but getting them into the country. So what did we do? So we did what a startup with 500,000 users, 8 million euros raised would do. Go to a board meeting, tell the investors that we're going to throw away 6 million of those euros that we have now built that platform that we have 500,000 users, and we're going to take that rest 2 million and start from the scratch, building a completely new product. That was a very fun board meeting. But what we had discovered was that in the previous product, we were a vitamin, but we had now found a real pain that needed to be solved. And we thought we had quite a good idea how to solve it. So here I am today, and what we have built is basically we are using automation and AI to make the processing of employee visas and relocation twice faster, 3 times cheaper. And so how to think of it is that if you have ever worked with an immigration lawyer, there's a lot of decisions the immigration lawyer is making to handle a case. We are putting those decisions into our system, and on top of that, we plug in different partners, vendors who help also with any type of relocation support that the talent may need in order to get to the country and settle into the country. So we take that whole thing off their plate. And today, yeah, it worked. It was a risky move, but it worked. So today we are operating in over 30 countries. And as somebody, a founder who has seen the other side, I have been the founder of a platform that was a vitamin. It feels amazing to have clients love you so much because you're actually solving a real pain for them. And we got to our hockey stick. Honestly, looking back all those years, I never thought I would see a hockey stick like that. But that also reminded me of a story. It was a little bit more than 1 year ago when I called one of my best friends. His name is Richard. So I called him and I said, you know, it's amazing. Jobbatical is exploding. It's just like I was so excited about what I'm seeing or what the team is seeing. So Richard was listening to me. And just to be clear, Richard and I have been friends for 2 decades, so he has seen the whole story from the beginning, including the phone call he had gotten from me 9 months before that phone call. And 9 months before, I had made a very different phone call where I asked 15,000 euros as a loan to save my company. I closed that round 2 days before it was the end of Jobbatical. So why I'm now sharing that, because what Richard listening quietly, and then what he said was priceless. So what he said was, so that's how the overnight success stories happen. And I'm sharing that because very often we look at those glamorous, beautiful success stories, and it seems it was so easy. But in fact, usually there's so much struggle behind to get to that success. So if you are a founder, struggling your own struggle and thinking, oh my God, she has that hockey stick. You can get there. But the question is that sometimes you have to make enormous hard decisions and changes. But anyway, what is interesting about our story is also that the relevance, even though we have pivoted, the relevance of the word Jobbatical, why I created it, is basically happening today. So obviously I put together 2 words, job and sabbatical, but why? Was because back then, job was a boring thing where you had to commute, work in your cubicle, didn't like your manager, probably didn't like your job, but it kind of paid the rent. And there was sabbaticals where you actually worked on something you believed in a location of your dreams. And I predicted that one day those 2 will merge. And that's actually exactly what we're seeing. That's the tailwind behind us. So we're seeing 2 things in the market. One, extremely competitive job market. And I mean, we are in the biggest talent shortage of human history. It basically means that most of companies need to start hiring from abroad. So people can choose new countries to live in and work in. But we also see the explosion of digital nomad employees, which means that in order to attract talent more, to retain talent more, companies are enabling people to choose country of their dreams and just work from them. So Jobbatical is happening. And now, what my team wakes up to do every morning, why we are doing what we are doing, from Indonesia to Colombia, is to make moving to a new country as easy as booking a flight. Thank you.
Thank you, Karoli. Awesome as expected. You might be one of the best people to give us a hint about leadership and how to keep your team in reality. You had a struggle which led to pivot.
Quite a few of them.
How do you keep these people with you? Because you said at one point of time, you believed me and so on, but it didn't work out. We are giving in different direction. And then you hit the hockey stick, and hockey sticks doesn't stay forever. So how do you calibrate? How do you keep the team in good and bad times in reality and not in illusion?
Yeah, I think there are a few different things. I think one of the things that has worked really well for us is like really radical transparency. And meaning that really our employees know even how much money we have on our bank accounts. So we give enough information for people to feel very trusted. They feel that they are part of the leadership in many ways. So I think that's one thing. And I think there are tiny things, including, which seems like not important, but celebration. People tend to forget to celebrate. You need to celebrate yourself, but also as a team. When times are good, you need to celebrate even more when the times are hard. So really, I mean, like when we have our all hands meeting, like I find things to celebrate. So I think there's like a, and Margus, going back to your question, maybe one answer you said about pivot. One of the things that I saw, we had hired amazing people. But the transition, when people saw that now I'm working on something that works so well and is creating value, I saw the same people just moving 3 times faster. So I think people, when you show that the clients are actually getting the value, this is enough to get people moving.
And then really good point that particularly in difficult times, you need to have creativity what to celebrate, because you need to celebrate and keep it going. So that's a really good one. What is your relationship with governments? I think like the more complex it is to move, the better it is your business.
It
and some parties don't want
but it's
immigration
against
at all.
our. So in that sense, I think that's a long. So how much time do we have left?
0.
I think I think in that we have a very unique position, being in between the public sector and the private sector, because we need. Companies need to hire, and governments are not fast enough to enable the basically foundation of it. So I think what we are trying to do is to be the voice in each country we operate, to really talk about the user experience of the country, and through that help to speed up the work that the policymakers are doing.
Thank you, Karoli.
Thank you.
And good luck fulfilling your dream. And thank you all. This was Best of Baltics 2023, and there will be continuity 2024.
Thank you, Margus. Big round of applause for Margus Uudam and Best of Baltics.